A heartbreaking end to a search for a missing mother and daughter. Less than 24 hours after they were last seen, their bodies were discovered in an off-strip hotel.
Sometime last night, the mother shot her daughter and then shot herself.
Let me paint you a picture. A Saturday night in Las Vegas. Neon lights, slot machines, the sound of the city that never sleeps bleeding through hotel walls. And somewhere on one of those floors, in one of those rooms, a little girl is lying in bed. She's 11 years old. She has a cheer competition in the morning. Her uniform is pressed. Her bag is packed. Her teammates are probably too excited to sleep. And she has no idea that she will never see morning. Her name was Addilyn Smith. Everyone called her Addi. And the last person she ever saw was her mother. Before I go any further, I have to ask you something. And I genuinely want your answer in the comments. Not because I'm supposed to say that, but because this case messed me up in a way I wasn't expecting when I started researching it. When a mother, who loved her child, who fought for her child for nearly a decade, reaches a point where she does something like this, who failed her? The courts? The system? The people around her? All of it? Drop your honest answer below. Even if it's just one word. I read everything, and this comment section always ends up being smarter than anything I could say alone. Let's get into it, because this story is not what you think it is. This is not a story about a monster. This is a story about a mother. A mother who loved her daughter. A mother who fought for 9 brutal years to stay in her daughter's life. A mother who drove that little girl to Las Vegas for a cheer competition. And made a decision that no court order, no custody agreement, no amount of legal intervention could have predicted. Or could it? Tonight, we are diving into every single angle of this story. The custody battle that consumed a decade. The cheer team conflict that, by all accounts, may have been the match that lit the fuse. The haunting 911 calls made by coaches who had no idea they were already too late. And the notes left behind in that hotel room that authorities have never fully disclosed. And the one question that sits underneath all of it, how does it get this far? And who, if anyone, could have stopped it? Stay with me, because this story deserves to be told right. Before we go anywhere else, I need you to know who Addilyn Smith was. Not as a victim. Not as a case number. As a kid. Addi was 11 years old. A cheerleader. A pageant girl. The kind of child who walked into a room and immediately made it louder, in the best possible way. The owner of her cheer gym said it best. Addi was the team's hype person. When routines went wrong. When nerves took over. When the pressure of competition started closing in on her teammates. Addi was the one who got up. The one who clapped her hands and said, "Come on, we've got this." At 11 years old. That kind of spirit, that kind of emotional generosity, is rare in adults, let alone children. She competed in pageants too. The Utah Cinderella pageant organization, one she had participated in, remembered her after she was gone. They said her bright smile and her kindness would never be forgotten. That is who Addi was. A bright smile. An even brighter spirit. And a child, like every child, who deserved to grow up. Who deserved to compete at that cheer competition on Sunday morning. Who deserved to go home. She didn't get any of that. And to understand why, we have to go back 9 years. That is where this story really begins. Tawnia McGeehan and Addi's father begin divorce proceedings. A decree of divorce is finalized 2 years later, in 2017. But here is the thing about divorces involving children. The paper doesn't end the war. Sometimes, it just moves the battlefield into a courtroom. And for Tawnia McGeehan and Addi's father, the courtroom became their permanent address for the next 9 years. Think about what 9 years of legal warfare does to a person. To their finances. To their mental health. To their sense of self. To their ability to function as a parent while simultaneously fighting to remain one. By 2020, 3 years into the custody dispute, things had deteriorated beyond what most people experience in even the most contentious divorces. A court determined that Tawnia had acted in ways that could alienate Addi from her father. That domestic incidents had occurred in front of the child. That the co-parenting relationship had broken down beyond the point of basic function. She temporarily lost custody of her daughter. The custody exchange arrangements that followed paint the starkest possible picture of how broken this situation had become. Exchanges had to happen at Addi's school, or at the Harriman Police Department. Both parents were required to park 5 stalls apart.
Police department and park 5 parking stalls away from one another.
It's a red flag.
Chris, you're right about that. That's a red flag. If you have to mandate 5 parking spaces, things are really having to be controlled.
Neither was allowed to record the child during transitions. These are not the co-parenting arrangements of two people who simply don't get along. These are the arrangements of a family in crisis. A family the court system had identified as being in crisis. And yet, the battle continued. Between 2017 and 2020 alone, Tawnia was charged in connection with 5 separate incidents: custodial interference, electronic harassment. She pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges. Both were later dismissed. 5 incidents. 5 separate moments where the system stepped in. 5 separate moments where a case file was opened, processed, and eventually closed. And through all of it, Addi kept going to school, kept cheering, kept smiling, kept being the little girl who rallied her teammates. Because kids are resilient in ways that break your heart. Then, in May of 2024, nearly a decade after it all began, a judge signed the order. Joint legal custody. Joint physical custody. Week on, week off. On paper, it was the resolution Tawnia had been fighting toward for years. But people who knew her have since asked a painful question. By 2024, after 9 years of that, how much of Tawnia McGeehan was left? Because here is the truth that family court cases rarely acknowledge. Winning can sometimes come too late. And for Tawnia McGeehan, the victory she had spent 9 years fighting for may have arrived after the damage was already irreversible. And then, as if the decade of legal war wasn't enough, something happened within the cheer team. Something smaller, on the surface, but for a woman already running on fumes, it may have been the thing that finally broke her. Cheerleading was supposed to be the good part. The part of the week where none of the courtroom noise mattered. Where Tawnia could stand in that audience and just be Addi's mom. Where Addi could just be a kid doing what she loved. But somewhere along the way, even that was poisoned. Tawnia's own mother, Connie McGeehan, spoke about what she witnessed in the weeks before Las Vegas. There had been problems with other mothers on the team. At a previous competition, another girl had been dropped during a routine, and some of the moms had pointed fingers at Addi. They blamed an 11-year-old child. And they didn't just blame her privately. They went after Tawnia in text messages. Direct, hostile, relentless. A source close to the team confirmed there had been a confrontation. A face-to-face clash between McGeehan and another mother. In a waiting room. In front of everyone. Now, I want to be very careful here. Cheer team drama does not cause a mother to do what Tawnia McGeehan did in Las Vegas. But context matters. Because when you layer those hostile text messages on top of 9 years of custody warfare, on top of criminal charges, on top of losing your child and fighting to get her back, on top of winning that fight and still not being able to exhale, you start to understand what the pressure inside that woman's world must have felt like. Not to excuse it, never to excuse it, but to understand it. Because understanding how people reach their breaking point is the only way we ever learn how to catch them before they do. And Tawnia McGeehan, by every piece of evidence we have, was at hers. She packed Addi's cheer bag, put the uniform in, the shoes, everything a little girl needs for competition day, and she drove her daughter to Las Vegas. Saturday night. The Rio Hotel and Casino. Las Vegas. The city is loud outside those windows. It always is. But inside that room, we don't know exactly what was said. We don't know what Tawnia was thinking. We don't know what the hours looked like before it happened. What we know is that by Sunday morning, Addi didn't show up. Her coaches noticed first. They always do. They made calls. They sent messages. Nothing came back. One coach called the hotel, then called 911. She told the dispatcher she was worried, that Addi hadn't shown, that something was wrong. She used the word imminent. The child possibly is in imminent danger. Hotel security went to the room. Knocked. No answer. They knocked again. And again. And for hours, as the missed competition stretched into afternoon, as more calls came in, as the concern turned to dread.
Lieutenant Robert Price held a briefing tonight to share the preliminary details on the case, what we know so far. He says dispatch received a call at 10:45 Sunday morning for a welfare check on that mother and her daughter. Security at the Rio Hotel went to their room, and after knocking and calling, they received no response. But at that time, they did not have enough information to make entry into that room. So after speaking with family and others, security went back up to the room around 2:30 that afternoon to check on the mother and daughter again.
Security entered the room at 2:30 p.m. 2 people. gunshot wounds to the head. Investigators determined that Tawnia McGeehan had shot and killed her daughter sometime Saturday night, before turning the gun on herself.
At that point in time, security decided to make entry into the room, where when they entered the room, they located 2 deceased females.
And while all of this was unfolding, while those officers were standing in that room, Addi's father was on the phone with a 911 dispatcher, still searching, still hoping. The words he said to that dispatcher will stay with anyone who hears them. "I'm trying to file a missing persons report for my daughter." He didn't know yet.
The calls that we received are from the girl's father and his wife, as well as a member of the cheer team, asking police to check on the mother and daughter.
Trying to figure out where my daughter and her mom is. They were supposed to be at a dance competition this morning. They didn't show up. People went to the hotel room. They're not answering the door. They're not answering messages or even seeing the messages. I don't think there's any more information. It's just, I need someone there. I need someone there looking in that room.
Let me see.
Do you have security?
It looks like we are in the room. Looks like our officers are active there.
Inside the room? Because I know they've been there to knock.
I believe so. Yeah.
And what can you tell me about that?
Are you here in Vegas?
No, I'm in Utah. My ex-wife and my daughter is there.
What's your name?
Cheer competition.
He was still looking for her. She was already gone. Notes were found in that hotel room. Their full contents have never been publicly disclosed. And that silence, that absence of answers, is its own kind of wound for everyone trying to understand how a mother who loved her daughter could do what Tawnia McGeehan did on that Saturday night. I have thought about this case every day since I started researching it, and I keep coming back to the same place. Not who. We know who. Not what. We know what. But how. How does a mother reach a point where the only exit she can see takes her daughter with her? Because here is the brutal truth that this case forces us to sit with. The warning signs were there. They were documented, filed, stamped, entered into court records. 5 incidents between 2017 and 2020. Custody interference. Harassment charges. A co-parenting relationship so fractured that police stations became the handoff location for an innocent child. At what point, in any of those 5 incidents, did anyone ask Tawnia McGeehan how she was doing? Not legally, not procedurally, but as a human being. At what point did the system that was processing her case file stop and say, "This woman needs mental health support. This family needs intervention beyond a court order"? In the cheer community, there were text messages. There was a confrontation. People knew tensions were high. At what point does someone make a call? These questions are not comfortable. But Addi Smith was 11 years old. She didn't choose the custody battle. She didn't choose the hostile text messages. She didn't choose the Saturday night that became her last. She just wanted to cheer. And she deserved a world, a system, that worked harder to protect her. Not just from strangers, but from the kind of quiet, invisible crisis that nobody intervened on, until it was too late. Rest in peace, Addi. You were the light in every room you walked into. And this world is darker without you in it. I don't have a clean ending for this one. I don't think there is one. But what I do have is this community. And I need to know what you're thinking right now. Do you think the family court system failed Tawnia McGeehan and ultimately failed Addi? Do you think more should have been done by the courts, by the cheer community, by anyone in their orbit? Tell me in the comments. Genuinely. I read every single one, and conversations in this comment section have shaped the direction of this channel more than you know. If this is your first video on this channel, I want you to know what we do here. We don't do shock value. We don't exploit victims for views. We ask the questions that matter. We tell the stories of people who deserve to be more than a headline. And we hold systems accountable when they fall short. If that is the channel you want in your feed every week, subscribe. Hit the bell. Because we have cases coming that you are not ready for. And share this video. Because the more people who know Addi's story, the more people who might recognize the warning signs the next time they see them. The next time, maybe, it won't be too late. I'll see you in the next one. Go hug someone you love tonight.